Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. I'm still I'm still alive. I'm still a thing. I'm still a person. I still do this YouTube channel because it matters to me. Now I've been doing this channel for a while, and I did a video about 10 months ago, it says. We'll give it that. The worldwide corporate marijuana takeover is underway. And on the thumbnail it says 2018 is about to be the year of the corporate marijuana takeover. And in that vein, we've seen a corporate takeover come to California. We've seen, I did other reports about corporate takeover in Massachusetts. John Boehner does a 180 on scheduling and joins the corporate takeover. More on that later. Here's one talking about the corporate takeover and how in places like Canada and Michigan and other places, packaging laws have basically kind of look like they're trying to, I don't know, neuter the culture, for a lack of a better theory on that. So anyway, in Canada, of course, the brutal corporate takeover in Canada, it's basically Prohibition 2.0. And then previously I've reported about how Jamaica had a issue with Prohibition ending there, and the talks of how they wanted to do, marijuana tourism or whatever, and how they were going to cut the Rastas out of it. Well, now we have this whole area right here. You got from Trinidad all the way over to Jamaica and everywhere in between around this horn here, all the way around this way. All these places are talking about legalizing marijuana for medical and religious reasons. I mean, we already have a bunch of places in South America that have done the same, but let's focus on Jamaica and these places. And the story I did about how the Rastas were being pushed out of the industry and foreigners with lots of money were coming in to take over. That's what's happening in all these places. So, and then we have this video here from Vice talking about Ed Fortune, otherwise known as the New Jersey Weed Man. And I'm just going to show you this video. It lasts 4 minutes and 50 seconds. And then I will comment. There's a couple things I want to say about this video. And then I'm going to kind of go through a few other places. I'm going to kind of give some more details about the progress of the corporate marijuana takeover. Now, it's happening, guys. It's not, McDonald's hasn't stepped in and took it over yet, or Marlboro or whatever, but this takeover is alive and well. Let's just say that.
He's not afraid to speak that voice.
He showed us that marijuana was a social drug.
Yeah, I know he was incarcerated wrongly for some time.
They tried to lock him up and put him in the can for promoting something that put everybody in a mind state like Zan.
He's putting his life and his freedom on the line. I definitely call the weed man a local legend.
I'm selling weed here at the State House. Up, here come state troopers. I can't get lit.
Time for free weed!
This is the sanctuary. Obviously, it's weed themed. It's called NJ Weed Man's Joint.
Do you know how many people's lives have been ruined over those weed laws? That's how I got my start. I was arrested for marijuana, and it ruined my life. And I've always been speaking out about it ever since.
Since marijuana's been legalized in the state of New Jersey for medicinal, I've been arrested 3 times. It's all been controlled by rich white men, which I call the Caucasian Cannabis Corporations. You know, it's almost like it's a local cartel. Senator Scutari's bill is trying to say that this is illegal unless it's associated with a dispensary, which I can't be a dispensary owner under his laws, but I'm a felon. So I can't even fill out the application to even get a micro license. This really is not a protest to the public, it's a message to the governor to veto this bill. Well, obviously it's still against the law to possess marijuana in New Jersey, so I will be openly possessing marijuana. I'll be openly selling marijuana. And because I have an issue with the way the state is proposing their law that does not have any home grow, I'm going to provide a few plants to people so they can take it home and home grow. This is absolutely illegal. And sometimes you got to make a stand. You got to just do it. When I first got there, I put this on the back, political prisoner number 420.
What the hell is going on here? We got a prisoner.
Man is arriving.
We got a prisoner.
To be honest with you, I am going a little further down to the governor's office to protest several things.
He practicing his rights. Yeah. His right as a citizen, period.
Making a statement?
I'm making a statement.
I ain't mad at you, do you, baby?
I've known Weed Man for about 3 years. My favorite story is gonna be when he sued the city for false imprisonment.
They're trying to pass a law that only the white guys get to sell weed. How is that possible? We've been going to jail forever. We've been getting locked up for it. And now they're creating this whole legal system and we can't even be a part of it other than still go to jail for it.
I found out by an ad for one of the marches that he had in front of the State House downtown. When I seen that, I'm like, wow, that's some real rebel shit.
Marijuana for sale. And can you tell Senator Sweeney that there's somebody outside selling weed right in front of his castle? I'm selling weed here at the State House. Up, here comes state troopers. Wait a minute, hold it. I can't get it lit.
The permit is for down by the annex, bud.
I'm not a part of that.
Okay, so then what are you doing?
I was selling marijuana at the governor's office.
All right, come on, let's go ahead.
Clearly, if you're trying to make a message to the governor.
I'm making my message. Yes.
So it's time to move. I'm not going to tell you again, sir, that the protest is down there. Okay?
All right, let's go.
I am. I'm waiting for my gun. Yo, why are you grabbing me? I was leaving. I couldn't get my joint lit. Yo, that is unfucking believable. How's it going, buddy? Hey, I'm still selling weed. I was down the street selling weed. Good weed. And we were $20 bags. Good weed. 20 bucks a bottle? All right, that's 2 bottles gone.
It smells amazing. Can't wait to drive home and smoke it.
There you go. Keep the change? For real, man? I appreciate it.
We should be able to get another ounce with that.
See? Mission accomplished. I said I was going to come down here and sell weed in front of the governor's office. I said I wanted to give a message to the governor. Press came, media came. I did not get arrested, and that's one of the ways I know this is a righteous fight for me.
We love you, New Jersey Weed Man. You're the best.
Catch y'all later.
And again, that was compliments of Vice. So anyway, couple of points about that. When you have, I have an issue with these regulations that have been passed in Arkansas for medical marijuana, Michigan for medical marijuana, Ohio, all around the country. We've seen time and time again the regulation package that was rolled out in Massachusetts. There's a lot of similarities in the language. There's a lot of similarities in the structure of the businesses and the the exorbitant fees that are required to enter the businesses, the limits and caps that they have, like in certain places, to slow roll in the licenses, almost as if they were making sure they were hand picking people or whatever. And and this is like the same structure. You can see it. It's evolving, and it's like a piece of clay that's getting morphed. And I'm not trying to say that there is an actual like a ALEC type outfit in the background writing these regulation packages and just dropping them off at the legislator, and then they rubber stamp them in. And I mean, some of them are really like they go a little farther than others because they're in places like Arkansas, where you can go a little more corporate and a little more restrictive on like what people are allowed to get away with or people are allowed to grow or whatever. And basically, anytime you see the home grows just getting taken out of these packages, that's if they know they can get away with that, they'll do that. And sometimes it makes you wonder how they got away with it in certain places. So anyway, back to the takeover. I'll try to get through this pretty quick. So I already mentioned how all these places that are trying to legalize medical marijuana for or for religious purposes as well have corporate takeovers looming in the background, writing the legislation. The same concerns are basically out from the Rastafarian movements in all these different places, from like I said, from Trinidad all the way around to Jamaica. And I've read stories, and each one of these places has at least one or two activists that have been on the case since some of these regulation packages have been getting put together. And that's that's kind of what's going on. For example, we have this article that came out just 3 hours ago, apparently, and like I said, amidst ganja reform, concerns about growers. And we have this statement here. Let's just go ahead and read this. The bills are expected to become law amidst concerns among three groups involved in the review of the draft legislation: growers, the Christian Council, and the parliamentary opposition. The foreign interests could benefit the most from medical marijuana industry here. And this is in Kingston, St. Vincent. As the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Parliament is expected to approve on Thursday laws establishing a medical marijuana industry in the country. And then this quote here, quote, "As we, as growers, get into this part of the industry, I must tell you that the playing field is not a level one, because foreigners, the investors, have the money, and the growers, they don't have the lands," said Junior Spliff Cottle, a long-standing advocate of reform of the island's marijuana laws. "I am very concerned about that aspect of the development. We have called upon government, and we are negotiating with them to make lands available," said Cottle. "We are a bit optimistic. If it's not made available, the whole issue of medical cannabis industry is going to fail. Monies might be made, but not from the perspective of growers' involvement, and we oppose that." So that the story is the same all over the world. It's not just, the things I've already mentioned, but, what about UK? The UK is the largest producer of legal cannabis. And this has been coming out since earlier this year. But as we've heard this story, people in the UK itself are like, hey, what about medical marijuana? How come how come no one can actually get any medical marijuana? So it says right here, Britain is the world's largest producer of legal cannabis, said a new report from the United Nations. 95 tons of marijuana was produced in the UK in 2016. I heard that number is over 100 now in 2017, and that accounts for 44.9% of the world's total. We are talking about medical marijuana. And they are also the largest exporter of the drug, with 2.1 tons exported in 2016. Roughly 70% of the world's total, wow, of exports. I mean, it's obviously why, because most countries, it's illegal to even grow it or manufacture it on a commercial scale, but to export it's a whole other ballgame. Like, now you're messing around with international laws and the laws in other countries that you might have to go through or whatever. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, so it's just another situation where corporations are producing cannabis. The UK is making money off of it. And the people of the UK can't even get medical marijuana. They don't even have laws for that. So back to America, kinda. Back to John Boehner, I should say. We see John Boehner is backing a pot firm, and on Thursday last week, I believe, this is from 11/16, yeah. So last Thursday, Acreage completed a deal to go public that values the company at $2.8 billion and installs former House Speaker John Boehner and former Massachusetts Governor Bill Weld on their board. Conglomerate thing where they go around and look at the marijuana laws in the different places where they're at, Acreage Holdings, and do whatever they can in that area and get involved there. So he's very much like the kingpin, if you will, of corporate takeover affairs. And I thought it was just limited to America, but this is the Canadian company, right? Oh no, this is Acreage Holdings. That's his company or whatever. So they went public. In Canada, because America, the stock exchange, it's still a little bit dicey. Ooh, met my limit. Oh well. Boston Globe, it's hard to believe. Anyway, he's the face of the takeover, guys, and you can bet that he came from an area of working as a Republican and was the Speaker of the House for many years, all throughout the Bush era. And this guy, he went to bat for the tobacco and alcohol lobbyists. He basically propped up the tobacco industry through some of its roughest times during all the lawsuits. And who knows? I mean, what we do know for sure is that he's in it for the money. He don't care about trying to change. He's not going to be an advocate. What else do we got in this corporate takeover? Well, we have basically just a quick little look at the rules of growing weed in Canada. And first you have the 4-plant rule, which here we have some corporate media trying to prop that up by getting some expert grower to tell you that 4 plants is not going to be like some kind of a crippling blow to a grower that grows like 20 plants usually or whatever. I don't know. He says you'll still be able to get some pretty big grow shows out of it. And my concern is that it's not really, look, this isn't allowed. If your neighbors could see that, that wouldn't be cool. And the rules are pretty strict, but 4 plants, I guarantee you the average person is not going to grow anything near that. And they know that. But as far as the smallest license that you could get, and I'm not sure how easy these licenses are to get, but they're talking about a proposed limit of 200 square meters for micro-cultivation licenses. And that would be based on the surface area occupied by all the parts of the cannabis plants, not just the floor space of the area in which the plants are grown. So in other words, the whole, whatever you have that you're considering part of the grow operation is all within this 300, or that'd be 600 square feet or 200 square meter facility. Not very big. So another thing about Ohio, they have a takeover going on. Everybody obviously sees it rolling out in real time, as it's taken quite a while for them to get the plants growing finally and now harvested, but they haven't had a problem with these dispensaries. And again, to use another point of Weedman, New Jersey, minorities are getting cut out of the business, especially when you look at these big licensing deals that go on, where they vet the companies. And even in Michigan, the process to get a license is so arduous and the background check is so intense. It's amazing that anybody could get a license. So this is pretty much all I got on Ohio, is that, yeah, I mean, there's a medical marijuana minority license quota that was proposed, and it got struck down. So, and it was kind of a situation where it called for 15% of cultivator licenses to go to one of the following economically disadvantaged groups: blacks or African Americans, American Indians, Hispanic or Latinos, and Asians, which incidentally, during Prohibition, were the groups that were highly focused on by the police for actually getting tickets for marijuana. So if you were in a car full of white kids and you got caught with weed, the cops probably didn't give you a ticket. If you were part of one of these other groups, you got a ticket. And now they're getting, cut out of the industry wholesale. And I guess this is just like an attempt to try to get them more favor for advantage for a license. And I don't know, I'm on the fence on these things, because it could work against people too. And it's like, maybe they got this quota idea and maybe more than 15% are qualified, but it could be used against them. It is a number that's reasonable no matter what side of the argument you're on, in my opinion, because 15 isn't really a big percentage, but it's kind of commensurate to the amount of population percentage that these groups represent, maybe, or not necessarily, but somewhat, depending on the area you're talking about. But the big deal is that these are the groups that were, if you look at the arrest numbers and the incarceration numbers for marijuana, these groups are over 50% of that. So if you want to talk about percents and being fair and stuff, well, there's that. And we all know that they don't make up like over 50% of the population like white people do. So, I mean, the Weed Man New Jersey made point after point that he was making about the corporate, he called it the Caucasian corporate takeover, or Caucasian corporate cannabis. And yeah, that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that more than I'm not seeing it. So, and my whole thing is people like me, for example, we don't necessarily care whether or not we have some multi-million-dollar business, or even a business that makes $1 million, or even a $500,000 or whatever. Like, a lot of the dispensaries that are going to get shut down in Michigan weren't people that could afford to move to the next level, because they're in an area that is basically laid back and there ain't a million people coming to their store every week. And the corporate takeover of the medical marijuana scene, we'll call it, that was going on before in Michigan, who knows how much it affects everything that's going on. But if you're a customer to a dispensary, if you were originally, you didn't have a caregiver, you don't grow your own, You might know somebody that you buy it from or whatever, but you also kind of depend on going to the dispensary from time to time. You know, just knowing it's there is a good it's nice security to have. Even for me, for some reason, like when I got robbed last year, and sure, you know, like having dispensaries around was a pretty handy thing to fall back on when things were, you know, when there wasn't nothing going on here. But what I'm saying is this is some bad news that the Detroit Free Press, Kathleen Gray, she's the local cannabis writer here at the Free Press. This is some pretty grim sounding shit. Let's just read it. The 40 newly licensed medical marijuana dispensaries around the state are facing a shortage of pot from licensed growers, meaning some may have to shut their doors until spring. Wow. And we heard the story, and we know that there's a deadline looming in December. I think it's the 15th. And when that deadline comes, two things happen. One, if you don't have a license, supposedly you're going to get shut down. And two, if you do have a license, the weed that you have on the shelf has to be manufactured, processed, and tested all in licensed facilities. And I think they made a special rule that said if you take it and retest it at the lab you at least have to have it tested at a lab that was licensed. And I've already went through this before. Like, some of these labs have been testing stuff prior to getting their license, and the tests that they've been running have been pretty much to the standards of the new rules, just to get people up to speed before the actual. And Michigan's been really good at self-regulating the medical marijuana industry before all this corporate takeover shit happened. And again, really quick summary of the Michigan corporate takeover. We had a ballot initiative in 2016. Competition, kind of. You had the libertarians with the abrogation of prohibition, which is my favorite, really. But the one I thought was probably had the best chance was the My Legalize, which is kind of like a democratic type situation where you ask everybody how they feel about certain things and what they want to have on the proposal. And then you had these Republicans called Responsibility Council of Michigan. And their proposal basically took the whole industry, legalized recreational and medical, but only 10 people could run all the production and distribution. Well, those people, they receded into the shadows after their ballot initiative didn't even get printed, I don't think. And they receded into the shadows of Lansing, the shadiest government in the whole country. And from there, they basically rewrote the rules for medical marijuana. And we never really had rules before for dispensaries and edibles and extracts or none of that. So guess what? They come along, they write the rules, and they make it almost impossible for anybody to get licenses, except for, of course, them and their friends. And I'm not sure if that's who's getting these licenses. I can't just throw all the people that got licenses under the bus and call them names and say they're part of the sinister corporate takeover. But I will say that it's kind of by design. It's not their fault, even if they have good intentions. And it's going to be really hard for them to make profits. That's kind of like my critique of the new laws that were made. And there's more to it than just what I said, as far as the lobbyists that help write the rules and the actual laws. So it's a little bit more than just what I'm talking about, and there's more people involved than just Responsibility Council of Michigan. And I'm starting to learn more about it, but it's just way too much to talk about, man. It's way too detailed. There's too much corruption in the government, especially in Michigan. And some people aren't very happy. Like, here we have somebody who has one of these licenses, but now he won't be able to really have any product until who knows when, but spring. And he's talking about paying more than $100,000 in state license fees for their Humblebee Products dispensary and processing facility, and developed a loyal following of customers, especially since Humblebee is the only licensed marijuana business in the northern lower peninsula. But in a matter of weeks, they, along with many of the other 39 dispensaries licensed by the state since August, may have to shut their doors until more cannabis becomes available. Quote, "We paid good money for a license, and now we're getting punished. And the unlicensed dispensaries are flourishing. Everyone who got a license is screwed." Now that's a little over the top. The unlicensed dispensaries aren't really flourishing. They're just continuing the same business as they were doing. And what you're hoping, because you got a license, is that they just walk away, or that the cops kick their door in and shut them down or something, because they represent direct competition to you, and you're mad that you aren't allowed to do what, you know, it's not like they're allowed to sell untested weed at the new testing regimen. They're not allowed to do it either. And here they talk about the unlicensed dispensaries, how there's about 215 of them around the state, continuing to operate under emergency rules until they can get a license. Now, it's around $66,000 in regulatory fees for getting a license, because you have to get a city license in your local municipality. Not all of them are game either. Like 80% or more aren't. And then you have to pay the state a $6,000 license application fee and a $48,000 assessment fee. So, you know. And they keep talking about people that have caregivers, or the unlicensed dispensaries buy cannabis from caregivers. Again, that's the emergency rules isn't really covering that. There's emergency rules that override the older emergency rules, and these ones are saying that you have to have your product has to be tested in one of these labs that are regulated. I don't know if they're doing that or not. And again, it's just people getting mad because if they're still open or they're still existing. There will be a hard deadline, and so far I think it's December 15th, and then it's looking like maybe they'll get shut down. So, I mean, this is what, you know, what the Scott Briscoe, the license, is that his name? It might be. Anyway, the guy that's in charge of the license bureau, which is called Laura, basically said the same. This is what these people would be saying, is that, hey man, this isn't fair. We paid all this money for our licenses, and you know, these guys are just still doing this stuff willy-nilly like the Wild Wild West. But the problem is that they're getting pushed out of the industry all the way. You're at least going to be able to still be there in the spring when it's time to get that licensed product. Anyway, it's a big fucking mess. I don't know if I even want to really get too into the thing here. But remember, there's 43,000 caregivers and 297,000 medical marijuana patients registered in Michigan. And, wow. The caregiver system's not going to change. But I don't know, you know. The thing is that these guys that have the licensed facilities, they're invested so heavily. There's no way they're going away. They just have to figure out, and everybody has to figure out how to work together for a minute. Maybe that's what it is. Now, if you live in Michigan like I do, and you want to know where these medical marijuana places are located, people have been asking me. I have another updated place where you can go check it out. I'll drop the link in the description. And it's from Amy Bielchini over at MLive. And once again, she does the marijuana reporting there. And I don't think she uses the word pot quite as much as the the one from the Free Press. Anyway, a couple things I pulled off of this story, which is where medical marijuana shops are located. We have licensing deadline for operating dispensaries changed multiple times, starting with the June 15th and then the later September 15th and then December 15th after a separate ruling from Borrello. The deadline drama and the past threat of state shutdown of nearly 100 businesses have drawn concerns from the medical marijuana industry. In total, the board has approved 67 business licenses and denied 31 in a 4-month span. That's more than 500 licenses that are still pending with the state. And again, a lot of it is because the bottleneck is the state. The bottleneck is the licensing bureau, who one of the main rules that they have is while you're in the phase 1 process, you have to get your facility inspected. And a lot of those inspections haven't been done. I haven't seen it in the reporting, but I also have people on the ground telling me that they've been waiting for inspections and they've been getting, continuously getting promised that they're still in the pipeline and they're still going to get inspected. But here's the map. It should come in pretty handy no matter where you live. There is something near you, but will they have product? Will they be opened? And I guess there is some dead zones here where there just isn't any dispensaries for a good chunk of this western Michigan. I guess they just don't like cannabis over there. I don't know, what else do we have? Oh yeah, finally, there's a couple more little quick things. The Baltimore Sun reports that, again, back to Weedman and New Jersey's point, national companies are moving to take over Maryland marijuana businesses despite the state law. And this is Cheryl Glenn, a Baltimore Democrat and fellow legislative Black Caucus members who were demanding back in 2017 that state medical cannabis rules make more room for local minority-owned companies. Today, Glenn is upset that big firms are trying to buy up firms with state licenses. National cannabis companies are eager to expand their share of the growing U.S. medical marijuana industry and are poised to acquire companies with Maryland licenses, despite a state rule that limits such consolidation and a new law barring any ownership changes for another year. For instance, Massachusetts-based Cureleaf, which has 2 of its own licenses in Maryland, has offered $30 million to acquire a small Frederick County company authorized to grow, process, and sell cannabis. So there has been some licenses that were awarded in Maryland, like within the last year and a half or 2 years. And since that's happened, some of these bigger out-of-state people, like MedMen, MPX, and GTI, have made deals on some of these firms. It's almost as if these firms got up and running and started getting a little bit of a customer base and a reputation just so they could sell out. So that's another angle that the corporate takeover is really, it's really going to be a thing until we have all 50 states medical marijuana legalized in a way that makes sense. Like I'm not talking about where every state has different rules according to how restrictive they're allowed to be to their populations. Like if you look at the medical marijuana rules that were in California since 1996 or whatever, and then compare that to like the medical marijuana rules in Georgia, if you can even call them that, or the Florida law that's a constitutional amendment, by the way. So, again, Cheryl Glenn says, I don't know how the commission is allowing this to happen. We are adamantly opposed to large out-of-state companies coming in and buying up licenses. A law signed in May prohibits the flipping of any of the licenses, Glenn noted. This needs to cease and desist. And it's like the same thing everywhere you look. And don't think that this isn't some behind-the-scenes takeover in action that has some fingers in it from people that are going to be losing out, like John Boehner, for example. He's going to, his tobacco and alcohol, you know, he feels like maybe he's not looking at those like he's going to be losing out on anything, but he's like a all hands on deck, you know, all tools in the shed or whatever you want to call it. He wants that money. And then you have people like Big Pharma who are going to lose billions, 18.5 billion if all 50 states legalize medical marijuana. And these kinds of studies have been coming out based on all the things that people get medical marijuana for. Chronic pain being one of the bigger ones. And some of the other things that it's hard to believe that people don't have access to medical marijuana for chemo and other things. So as that expands, Big Pharma, you know, why do you keep seeing this thing where they're losing money? Is that cannabis works, and Big Pharma, people are like, they know the cannabis is working, they know the pills are not working. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure out why Big Pharma's losing money over cannabis. It's not because everybody wants to just get high and forget that they have health problems. It's because the cannabis works, and the Big Pharma garbage is just salt on the wound. So I don't know, guys. This is just another round of updates on the corporate marijuana takeover, but mark my words, this ain't even the beginning yet. You've seen the roller coaster ride going on with the stocks in Canada, right? Because Canada, don't even have that up. Canada's looking, you know, like one of the worst kind of house of cards fallen when it comes to like envisioning the corporate takeover being like an instant thing. Like instantly we're gonna boom, all those old unregistered, unlicensed stores are gone, and we're gonna usher in the new era with, you know, these state-run, or in some cases it's mail order, and basically we're having shortages everywhere, really limited supplies. It's just sad what's going on in Canada. So yeah, hopefully everybody in Canada grows plants that look like that, but in my experience, outdoor growing really kind of it's not the easiest thing to do in colder climates. But and when we go back to Canada, you also think of you know, I don't know, this corporate takeover, it's pretty brutal. And Canada, again, with the neutering of marijuana, you can't even sell bongs, you can't sell paraphernalia that has the letters 420 or a pot leaf on it. Who knows what other things the corporate takeover is responsible for there. But, you know, we'll keep you updated as it keeps expanding. And we heard murmurs of beverage companies trying to, you know, get their foot in the door. Alcohol companies already have. That's just something else I haven't covered enough, but it's coming. and I'm sure CBD is going to be like probably one of the ways that they start out, you know, kind of dip their toes in the water. And we've heard murmurs of that from big companies that are talking or have already made deals with some of these Canadian companies. And it's to be expected. All right. And to eventually see a pack of Marlboro joints is to be expected, or vape pens or something, you know. So it's all on the horizon, guys. And I don't know if I like what I see, but one thing that we always fight for here at the Daily Dope Show is while all this is happening, we have to protect people from getting arrested or criminalized for just doing what they've always done. Whatever level of participation in marijuana that they have done can't be criminalized while we're trying to legalize this. And it's kind of a disaster how this is happening. We have legalization without decriminalization, which is de facto prohibition. It's basically prohibition for the masses and capitalization for the few. This is not what we intended. The people that were pioneers, the people that have been activists their whole lives, this is not what we intended, man. We weren't asking to be basically provided for cradle to grave when we're already growing our own, when we was already, involved in whatever, cultivation.